That's what gave power to the vice president as a matter of succession. So in other words, when Andrew Johnson took over as president, he was operating as a mere dictator because there was nothing within the Constitution itself that established that he actually now has power. Yeah, I got him. Here you go, son. Come get your cereal. I don't know how you got downstairs already. Still nothing on my table, boy. Go get a spoon. Does that make sense? Close that cabinet for me, please. I mean the pantry. Does that make sense, y'all? Am I making sense what I'm saying? Let's go to it. And this is why I say I wanted to pull up the Constitution that's got the dates. Right? This is why I said I wanted to pull up the Constitution that had the dates. Right? So again, notice that this was passed in 1866 and ratified in 1868. Right? And President Andrew Johnson and his cabinet put it together. Now, note here it says passed by Congress. Right? And that part is important. But let's go to Amendment number 20. Amendment number XX. Section 3. Right? This is Amendment number 20, Section 3. What does it say? If at the time fixed for the beginning of the term of the president-elect shall have died, the vice president-elect shall become president. If a president shall not have been chosen before the time fixed for the beginning of his term, or if the president-elect shall have failed to qualify, then the vice president-elect shall act as president until president shall have qualified. And the Congress may by law provide for the case wherein neither a president-elect nor a vice president shall have qualified, declaring who shall then act as president, or the manner in which one who is to act shall be selected. And such person shall act accordingly until the president or vice president shall have qualified. Right? So now, if we go back and we look at the date, that date says what? Passed by Congress March 2nd of 1932 and ratified January 23rd of 1933. That opened the door for assassination, as you see it. Now, granted, what that did was that was a protection clause, because if you deal with ratified January 23rd of 1933, what happened right after this? AJ, what are you doing? You let Mello outside? Yeah. Okay. And Mom said we go outside as long as they have long pants and a jacket. No, you're not going outside, boy. You sit. You gonna finish eating and you're gonna take your butt upstairs. What the hell are you talking about? That boy bugging out. Anyway, so yes, you're right. You're right, Haitian Los. This opened the door for justifiable assassination. Well, not justifiable, but assassinations and secession. Hint, hint, Lyndon B. Johnson. Hint, hint, John F. Kennedy, Lyndon B. Johnson. Right? So let's go back. So now when we go back and we deal with the 14th Amendment again, there was no official establishment for transfer of power if a president was to be killed. So when you're dealing with the 14th Amendment is arbitrary at best. Understand? The 14th Amendment is arbitrary at best. You could even go so far as say it's treasonous. Now, here's what's important. We know based off of the Emergency Banking Powers, the Emergency Banking Act and House Joint Resolution 192 that was written in 1933 subsequently, right? We know that gold and silver had been lost, right? There's no gold and silver anymore, right? And that we moved from what was called a Republican form of government that was established within this Constitution to what they now regularly call a democracy, right? They regularly call this a democracy day to day. But we know that this is not a democratic form of government at all, as it was supposed to be established. As it was supposed to be established, we know it's not a democratic form of government. But because of the emergency banking powers and the International Monetary Fund, they changed this, and they really don't even follow this right here. And now we're up at election time, and when it's time for us to start dealing with presidential election, they're dealing with this magical thing called an electoral college, which the electoral college has zero establishment under the Constitution at all. At all, right? So now is where we go to House Joint Resolution 192. Now, let's see, that's page 335, so I can remember, page 335. All right, so when we look at the date of House Joint Resolution 192, not House Joint Resolution 192, Proceedings and Debates of Congress, of the 90th Congress, first section, volume 113, part 12. Right? Note the date here, June 12th, 1967 to June 20th of 1967. So somebody tell me, what was the special thing that was happening during these days? There's a special event that everybody kind of refers to in history, right? A special point in time. What did they call this era of time in like the 60s? What was the big things that was happening in the 60s? Who remembers? This is very, very important. Who remembers what was that big thing? Civil rights. I like that. The civil rights movement. That's what we're looking for. Civil rights. I like that you said that, Haitian Los. But we're not going to go too far, right? So this is at the height of the civil rights movement, right? Where so-called Black people were beginning to make headway for receiving some type of recognition as a people, even though this fight for civil rights was in complete vain, because that still didn't give them human rights, but civil rights nonetheless. So the reason that the congressional record is important is because the U.S. government essentially tells on themselves under the de facto status with this document right here. Now, when you talk to most people, and I was to say, hey, the 14th Amendment is unconstitutional, most people will tell you, oh, the 14th Amendment, if it's in the Constitution, then it is constitutional. And that's not how it works. Because in order for a particular amendment to be established, there's provisions written within the Constitution that must be followed in order for an amendment to be valid. Right? There's provisions that must be followed. And this is what this document, the Proceedings and Debates of the 90th Congress, first session, volume 113, part 12, this is what this established. So we're going to turn to electronic page, what did I say, 335? Did I say 335? All right, yes, 335. All right, let me move this over and cut it that way. We're going to move to page 335. This is very important, people. Can y'all see that? Can y'all see that? It says, and I quote, "The 14th Amendment is unconstitutional. The purported 14th Amendment to the purported 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution is and should be held to be ineffective, invalid, null, void, and unconstitutional for the following reasons." Okay? Number one, the joint resolution proposing said amendment was not submitted to or adopted by a constitutional Congress, Article 1, Section 3, and Article 5 of the United States Constitution. The joint resolution was not submitted to the president for his approval. Article 1, Section 7. Now, why is this one right here so important? Who remembers what we just went over? Why is this one, the joint resolution, was not submitted to the president for his approval? Article 1, Section 7. Why is that one so important? Who knows? Who can start to put these pieces together? Lincoln was dead. There you go. Bingo. President Lincoln just got his head blown off. So if President Lincoln just got his head blown off, Daddy, I'm letting Mello outside. No, leave him in the house. If President Lincoln just got his head blown off, how is he going to be able to approve what Congress just put together? So he can't. Why? Because the acting, and not even officially acting, was Andrew Johnson, and that he didn't have the authority to do any of this shit. See what I'm saying? Does that make sense? So now when we go to the proposed 14th Amendment was rejected by more than 1/4 of all the states then in the Union. And it was never ratified by 3/4 of all the states then in the Union, based off of Article 5. So now what you're dealing with is the states, when they go and read the 14th Amendment, they're like, hold on, we can't even push this up because you don't have an authority. So more than 1/4 of the states then in the Union rejected it. Bro, we can't deal with this. They were all under the idea that we got to wait for a new president to be established lawfully, according to the provisions, which means we got to deal with some type of new election or something. The whole entire country was in disarray when Abraham Lincoln got killed. Whoa, hold on. What the fuck is going on? And this guy, Andrew Johnson, who was a known Southern apologist, slave owner and all, who only aligned himself with the third party, i.e. the Republican Party, in order to take office. But he was a Democrat. He only aligned himself so that he could stand next to Abraham Lincoln and get some type of recognition throughout the rest of the country. Because you got to remember, Abraham Lincoln wasn't on any of the ballots in the South. So nobody really knew who that motherfucker was. But because of him winning the majority of the country and not the South, he became that dude. So now when we're dealing with the proposed 14th Amendment was rejected by more than 1/4 of all the states, you got the individual states saying to themselves, yo, something is wrong here. You can't bring forth an amendment. President Andrew Johnson, acting president, you can't bring forth this amendment. There's something going wrong administratively. So now, the unconstitutional Congress. So mind you, keep in mind, let's fast forward back to 1967. This is Congress telling on themselves. Because prior to this, all of our people think what? What do our people think? They think that they're citizens, right? Based off of the 14th Amendment, they think that they're citizens. Not even understanding what citizenship, what this is actually portraying to. So because they don't understand the provisions and how all this is working, they think that they're citizens. And they think that they have the ability to fight for what? Civil rights. They think they can fight for civil rights, but it's all in vain. And this is Congress telling them, yo, all the work that you're doing is in vain because you're not citizens anyway. Understand? You're not citizens anyway. So yeah, go ahead and keep fighting for civil rights. We'll even say, you know what, we'll give them to you, but it doesn't matter anyway because the 14th Amendment is unconstitutional. So you can think what you want. Watch this. The United States Constitution provides Article 1, Section 3. The Senate of the United States shall be composed of 2 senators from each state. And then Article 5. No state without its consent shall be deprived of its equal suffrage in the Senate. And then the second part, here we go. This is a part that people didn't see, and how Congress told them themselves in order to stop so-called black people from being able to receive any real redress, because this was the first step, was the civil rights, but they rejected it. And here's why. They said the fact that 23 senators had been unlawfully excluded from the United States Senate in order to secure a 2/3 vote for adoption of the joint resolution proposing the 14th Amendment is shown by resolutions. Hold on, next page. Is shown by, it's shown by, let me make sure I read that last word. It's shown by protest. It's shown by protest adopted by the following state legislators. So what that means is they were denying people